Look at this smile. She seems happy, right? If you've already seen the movie, then you know what she tries to do right after this. Now when you look at it, does she still seem as happy? How about now? This is the manga version of that scene. I hate to say it, but on my first read, I didn't notice the obvious pain on her face and was caught completely off guard by the action she takes next because I'm dumb. So today I want to talk about what led up to this moment, what drove Shoko to be in this mindset, and how the manga ending was different than the movie ending. This is a part 2 video that covers the last 3 volumes of the manga. So if you want to see what happens in the first 4 volumes, please consider checking out my previous video. With that being said, let's get started. I didn't mention this in the last video, but one of the biggest plot points that was cut out of the movie was that Tomohiro and Shoya wanted to make an amateur film. That kind of sounds wrong. I meant a film made by amateurs in order to submit to a contest. They wanted to win the prize money for the contest. That prize money was going to be used to pay off Shoya's mom, who just burnt the last money. However, they have a problem. They don't have any friends. But luckily for them, a guy named Satoshi overheard them making the movie and he volunteers himself to be the lead actor. Which, great. However, if he's going to join, then Miki is going to worm her way in, and if she joins, she's going to bring in Ueno, which all that happens. But now they have the staff that they need. They have a goal to shoot for. All they need is a camera, to which they get that from Yuzuru. The only thing that she wants in return is for them to take her someplace fun, which is why they ended up at the amusement park. Believe it or not, the filmmaking plot in the manga ties in with a lot of the characters' growth later on. So the movie roles are as follows. Tomohiro is going to be the director. Shoya is going to be the assistant director. And that just boils down to him just doing the grunt work for the movie. Miki is going to be the scriptwriter, while Satoshi is going to be the main actor. Ueno and Miyoko, who gets dragged in later, is going to work on the costumes, and Shoko ends up helping wherever they see a need for her to help at, such as shopping for the props or asking for permission to film. So now the group gets together to talk about what type of movie they want to make and where they can film it at. Tomohiro wants to film the movie at an elementary school, and Shoya's elementary school is the only one that was okay with it as long as they liked the script. So now Shoya, Shoko, and Satoshi have to go on a mission to buy the supplies and also ask for permission at the elementary school. If you don't see what the problem is, let me explain it to you. You have Shoya, a kid who bullied someone at that school, now going to that school to ask for permission. You have Shoko, the kid that he bullied, going with her bully to ask for permission. And you got Satoshi, who was bullied when he was younger, and now he hates bullying with a passion, to the point where he steps in whenever there is bullying going on to stop it. And now they're all on their way to this elementary school to ask for permission from this guy. If you don't know who this guy is, basically in my last video I called him Scum. He had the authority to stop the bullying, but he never did because he couldn't be bothered to. So while Shoko was shopping for supplies, Shoya and Satoshi went to the elementary school to ask for permission. This scumbag started to spout off about how all the trouble that Shoya went through in the past helped them grow into a respectable young man. That kind of struck the nerve with Shoya because in his mind, he's still living with the guilt of bullying Shoko and he still hasn't made up for it, or at least to himself he hasn't. And this scumbag is telling him that it was a necessary stepping stone for his growth. I also mentioned in my previous video that Satoshi threw water in the guy's face. This is where that happened. While they were leaving, Shoko walked in to see if they got the permission to film. Mr. Takeuchi is surprised by this because he never thought that Shoko would ever want to come back here. Then he sees Shoya talking to Shoko in sign language and states, "See, you did grow into a fine young man." The boys left in anger, while Shoko was looking around and noticed something. The teachers look smaller than they used to be. Shoko has grown. She has moved on from the past and no longer is terrified by it and hold down by it. However, Shoya is still terrified by it. He fears that the people are going to find out what he did and he would be isolated again. So to Shoya, he still sees the school as something huge that towers over him because he's still stuck, unable to move on from the past mistakes. But very soon, his biggest fears are going to be realized. Ah, summer. Time for the swimsuit chapter. Yes! What the heck? They had it without us. Damn it. Anyways, they continue to work on making the film. And they're having a blast doing it. Until Shoya jinxed himself. And things quickly started to fall apart. Satoshi, although he's a good guy, he's a little nosy. So he wants to know what happened to Shoko in the past. And Shoya tries to dance around this topic because, well, he's the bully. He does the best he can, however, Satoshi is able to guess a joke that was made in the past. That was enough to make Shoya paranoid. Did someone talk about the past? Satoshi continued to question Shoya. Who was the kid that did it? Did they know it's not okay to bully disabled kids? What does that loser look like today? If I saw him right now, I would punch him in the face. He's not aware that the loser is right behind him. Now Shoya is worried that someone talked about the past, so he goes to the most likely person who would have done that. That person being Miki. Not gonna lie, bad move on his part, but he's terrified of the past being brought back up, so he's not thinking straight right now. Unfortunately for him, Miki doesn't like when people accuse her of stuff, so of course she goes into victim mode. You think I'll run my mouth about everything? Yes. Did you really reflect on your actions? You think you could silence me? This bitch thinks she could lecture my boy? At least my boy is trying. Alright, he's owning up to his mistakes, but this bitch still doesn't think that she did anything wrong in the past. Shoya, being annoyed by this, ends up yelling at her, which is another bad move on Shoya's part. This gets everyone's attention. It causes Miki to become scared and start to run her mouth like she said she wouldn't do. She told the whole class that he was the one who bullied Shoko, and that he tried to silence her about it. That he thinks that he changed, but he's still the same person as before. Left with no choice, Shoya tries to drag Miki down with him, but you can't beat a professional victim. And this selfish bastard said she always told him to stop.
Are you sure about that?
Like when she watched Shoya write nasty things on the chalkboard about Shoko, then watched him leave and then come back pretending like he was there to help. Unfortunately for Shoya, people are more likely going to take the side of the crying girl than they are going to take the side of the guy who just yelled at her. It is what it is. So Shoya runs. My boy knows that in an instant, he just lost all his friends and goodwill that he built up in his class. He even starts to gaslight himself into thinking that he altered his own memories. I'm gonna be honest, I feel that. I look back at my own life and I don't remember if certain things happened or not. Or if someone told me about him, that's why I remember them. What I'm trying to say is that the mind sucks, and sometimes when you're very stressed out, it sucks even worse. Lost in his own thoughts about running away, he ends up running into Ueno, which on any other day would have been a bad thing, but this time it's a good thing. Shoya is drowning in a sea of self-doubt, but Ueno pretty much just tells him, screw that, we'll go confront them. If anything happens, you could blame me about it, which I give her props for that. She hates the fact that in middle school, all she did was sit back and watch Shoya be miserable and alone. But this time, she's got to do something before it's too late. So they go to the bridge and meet up with Shoko, Yuzuru, and Miyoko. Then the others show up soon after. At first, it looks like everything was going to cool down because, yeah, Shoya was a bully, but he's right there with the victim working on making it up to her. But don't forget, Miki is a professional victim. She can't even say sorry without morally grandstanding. This then triggers Ueno to stand up for Shoya, and Miki and her start to argue about whether or not laughing at someone who's being bullied counts as bullying itself. And according to future Miki, yes, those people are also scum. Tomohiro tries to stop them, but Miki lets her mask slip. Then, the others start to get dragged in, but before things got worse, Shoya takes a page out of the 8-man's book and becomes the villain. If you only seen the movie, then you wouldn't know this, but what Shoya says in the manga goes harder than what he says in the movie. I'll show you the differences in the lines that were said. We got the first victim, Ueno. In the movie, Shoya just tells her, pretty simple, but in the manga he says, you're not much different from Miki. Whether it comes from the nose or the eyes, gunk is still gunk. Quit your screeching, it's laughable. Damn! Jesus, dude. You're starting to make me feel bad for Ueno. Up next, Miyoko. In the movie he says, but in the manga he says, stop pretending you care, Miyoko. We all know how quick you are to run. That's why you get bullied. Now, onto the one who deserves it, Miki. In the movie he says, which is true, but that's kind of weak. Let's see what the manga got for us. Miki, you disgust me from the bottom of my heart. Please stop talking. Oh man, she hurt my boy. Unfortunately, even Tomohiro and Satoshi catches strays, but they weren't that bad. They just boil down to, what do you know about me, and you're just an outsider anyways. In the end, Miki runs off crying. Tomohiro and Miyoko left hurt, but they still want to hang out with them. They just need some space right now. Then you have Ueno, who has the most relatable moment in the story. This moment is the reason why I don't hear her, because I get that. Do you remember earlier when I said that Satoshi told Shoya that he would punch Shoko's bully in the face if he ever sees him? Well, Shoya tells him that it's okay for him to punch him if he wants to which he's like, alright, bet. Then he leaves, but not before Yuzuru stops him to say, who the hell do you think you are? To which he replies, just a passerby doing my part. Hearing this, Shoya fully realized that all his friends were lost. Now, the only people he has left are Yuzuru and Shoko. So he asks them if they want to hang out somewhere fun. Wait a minute, what type of face is that? After the falling out, the movie project gets cancelled, leaving just Shoya and the Nishimiya sisters to hang out together. But Yuzuru doesn't want to get in the way of Shoko's and Shoya's date, so she doesn't go. And like the movie, they hang out at the museum, and you could tell that things were wrong. Shoya is trying hard to pretend that things are normal, but occasionally his thoughts of his friends calling him a bully keep popping up in his mind. As for Shoko, she's trying hard not to show any emotions right now, but they push through it to try to have some fun. Shoya ends up falling down, and this causes Shoko to start to apologize to him. For what reason? Who knows? But what she has to say is, nothing good comes from being around me. Because of these words, Shoya tries to hang out with Shoko more to try to disprove them, and eventually he gets invited to her mother's birthday celebration. At first, the mom was angry about Shoya being there, but quickly changes her mind to let him stay. In the movie, it seems kind of strange how fast she was able to change her mind about it, but in the manga, it already showed that Shoya was already chipping away at the mother's anger. In part 1, I talked about this. The first time Shoya faced the mother, he got slapped. The second time was after finding Shoko, who was lost. She still hasn't forgiven him, but since it was raining, she gave him an umbrella in order for him not to get sick. In between this and the next interaction, her daughters most likely were talking about Shoya and how they were hanging out with him and stuff. And then the final interaction before the birthday celebration was at the grandma's funeral, where she thanks him for hanging out with Yuzuru. So yeah, at this point, she's already seen him multiple times and she probably already knows that he's trying his best to make up for the past. So they hang out and talk over the table about submitting one of Yuzuru's photos into a contest. And the photo that Shoko chose was different than what Yuzuru usually takes pictures of. Because if you don't know, Yuzuru usually only takes pictures of dead things, such as bugs, animals, granny. In order to change the topic, Yuzuru invites Shoya to the firework festival with them, to which he accepts. The Nishimiya family and Shoya are going together to see the firework festival. While reading this, I tend to forget that the Nishimiya family hated Shoya's guts just a few months ago. Yet Shoya was able to make amends enough so that they're all gathered together on a joyous celebration. It's quite touching, honestly. At the firework festival, everything was going good until Shoko decided that she wanted to leave early to study. Yuzuru ended up sending Shoya over to her house because she forgot her camera, but most likely it was a way for Shoya and Shoko to spend more time together. So Shoya heads over to get the camera, but this dum-dum forgot what apartment number they were in, and he also forgot his phone, so he couldn't call in advance. It's dark. Shoya finds the camera and starts to press buttons on it to see if it's charged. Then he notices Shoko. Wait, what is she doing? Quit standing there, Shoya. Stop her. I understand that yelling her name is a natural thing to do, but she's deaf, dummy. Now hurry! Yes, you got her. Now all you need to do is bring her up, and everything will be okay. Oh, thank God there's a river underneath. So even if someone was to fall, it would break their fall. Wait, how high does someone need to be before water turns into concrete? Shoya can't remember. And he starts to think, if I had just faced everyone head on like I should have, would things have been different? Finally, Shoko is able to grab the railing. But oh no, Shoya falls. Why? Why did she try to end her life? Because of the bullying? Is it the self-hatred she felt earlier in the story? Why? Let's go back to the falling out at the bridge. The day was normal for Shoko. Then, all of a sudden, everyone started to argue with one another. And Shoko was not able to hear what they're arguing about. All of a sudden, the boy that she likes curls up into a ball. Then, her friends start to run off crying. Then it happened. The boy that she loves was punched by the boy who told her that he would beat up the person who was mean to her. She knew that everyone found out about the past. She knew that Shoya was punched for being the bully. And she felt like it was her fault. Remember what she said earlier? Nothing good ever comes from being around me. Well, in the collector's edition, the author talks about this. And to summarize it, Shoko always kept track on the amount of things that were destroyed by her, such as her parents' marriage. And these things kept piling on, and soon enough she started to feel like she doesn't want to be around anymore. She kept these feelings buried for years, until Shoya showed up again, and it brought her hope. But then the falling out at the bridge happened, and all that hope was gone. If she's still around Shoya, he will always suffer. Nothing good comes from being around me. We start back up at the hospital. Shoya is still alive, but he's in a coma. The fall caused major damage to his shoulders and butt. I think my boy cracked his ass. Probably a hole there too. Things start to play out similar to the movie, but there are differences. Yuzuru shows Shoya's mom the footage, and her mom end up apologizing with their heads on the floor. Then they go outside to see Ueno beating up Shoko. The big difference is who was there to see it. You have Ueno, who's beating up Shoko because she blames Shoko for Shoya's fall, which I get why she would blame her. You have Miyoko, who finds the strength to stand in between Shoko and Ueno. And you have Yuzuru, who's just standing there, watching, unable to do anything. This is strange because if someone throws a rock at Shoko, Yuzuru always throws rocks back at them. Yuzuru does whatever she can to protect her sister, but this time she can't. She can't argue with what Ueno is saying. Her sister tried to jump from what looks like the 6th floor of a building. And for what reason? Because she thinks everyone's life would be better without her? Ueno is right. She wasn't thinking about how everyone felt. She only assumed that everyone was suffering because of her. And Shoko's always thinking that if she was normal, things would be different. Things will be normal as well. I'm not saying Ueno is right for beating up Shoko. I'm just saying that she's expressing her feelings the only way she knows how, with violence. But luckily for Yuzuru, she didn't have to do anything because her mom stepped in. You gotta understand, the mom has pent up anger that she is finally gonna have the chance to release. Her daughter has been bullied all her life, and she couldn't do anything about it. She couldn't just go up to the elementary school and beat up the kids who were bullying her, and you can't really prove that the school was ignoring all the bullying. So what could she do? So she had to live without being able to protect her child. The only thing she was able to do was try to make her child stronger. But finally, she sees someone beating up her child and she steps in. Look at this woman. No pain, no emotion, just a mother protecting her child. After the fight, we find out that Ueno was acting on just pure emotions. The boy that she likes is in a coma because he saved Shoko. So she wasn't going to feel right until she brought pain to Shoko. She asked Yuzuru, "Why didn't you stop me?" But all Yuzuru could say was she wasn't sure if it was right to do so. We soon find out why Yuzuru only takes pictures of dead things. In part 1, I explained how the communication notebook that Shoko had was used to represent Shoko's ability to talk to people. But Shoya throwing it into the fountain pretty much told her that no matter how hard she tries, no one wants to talk to her. So she gave up. That day when she got home, Yuzuru asked her, "What's wrong? Why is she so wet?" And she replied with, "I want to die." This is the most heartbreaking panel in the manga. So, in a panic, Yuzuru searches for a way to make her sister not want to die, and she comes up with a plan. If I show Shoko all these dead things, then she's not going to want to be like that. She's not going to want to die. And so she starts taking pictures and hanging them up on the wall. But in the end, it didn't work. So while taking down the photos, Yuzuru ended up wondering if there's anything different that she could have done to prevent this, and what would Shoya do instead. So she starts to cry. Seeing this, the mother starts to cry too. Now seeing the pain that she caused, Shoko starts to cry as well. Now they're all just standing there in the living room, crying together, but separately. But that's not the end. Shoko knows what she must do now. And while they're waiting for Shoya to wake up, she decides the best thing to do is get everyone together to finish that film. While Shoya was sleeping at the hospital, Ueno took it upon herself to seal off his room and let nobody in. So Tomohiro and Shoko end up talking in the lobby. They talk for a bit until Tomohiro asked her why she tried to die. And she pretty much states that she destroyed what everyone worked so hard to make. She's talking about the drama at the bridge. They concluded that the best thing to do is finish the movie, and Shoko will be the one to take over Shoya's job. Miyoko has already finished the costume for the movie, but since the movie was a no-go, she wanted to enter it into a fashion contest, but Ueno shot her down. So she was about to throw away the costume, but then Shoko stopped her. The show must go on. Now she's working on the other costumes and trying to work to improve herself as well. Satoshi and Miki both go together to see Shoya, but saw Shoko and Miyoko in the lobby instead and walked over to talk to them. Shoko tells them that she wants to continue working on the movie, to which Miki slaps her. Like, what the heck? She's just asking a question. No need to freaking get violent. What the hell? Basically, Miki starts to yell at her and give her a speech about how she's not the only person suffering. So they end up hugging and stuff. Then Miki looks up to see that Miyoko is signing to Shoko, telling her that she will explain everything that Miki said later on. Soon after, she finds out that Ueno is keeping everyone from seeing Shoya, so she goes to confront her about it. But while they're doing that, Shoya's mom shows up. You would think that she would set Ueno straight, right? Well, you would be wrong. She just told them to do what they want, and then turns to leave until she bumps into Shoko, to which she just walks away. You see, she's terrified. She's scared that her son won't wake up, and she doesn't know how to talk to Shoko without him. So she says that they will talk once he wakes up. After all that, Satoshi tells Shoko that it's a great idea to continue the movie, then leaves. Miki, all of a sudden, thinks it's a great idea as well, and leaves with him. After parting ways with Miki, Satoshi went to the elementary school to apologize for what he did, and asked for the permission to film again. To his surprise, Shoko was there, so together they got the permission to film. Shoko also tried to persuade Ueno to help them make the film, but she kept declining. She just wanted Shoko to leave her alone. But Shoko is persistent and ends up walking her home. In the end, the most she got out of Ueno is the email for the guy who was going to do the music for the movie. And even without Ueno, they managed to complete the film. Shoya just fell. After climbing over the railing, Shoko runs through her apartment, into the elevator, and out the front door. The police are already there, and they begin to question her. Out of nowhere, someone tells them, "She can't hear you." It was Shoya's old friends. They soon left after saying, "Don't tell Shoya." Of course, the person who was most affected by Shoya's fall was Shoko, because, really, it was her fault. This point in the manga, it finally shows us how Shoko experiences the world. We know that she could kind of hear things, but she can't hear them correctly or loud enough to make out the words. And it's portrayed like this in the manga. Not only are the words not spelled correctly, they're cut. If you spend enough time sounding them out, you can make out what people are saying. As a reader, we have all the time in the world to do that. However, Shoko, she doesn't. She has to struggle with that her entire life. Here, when Shoko is at her lowest, she tries to imagine how the world would have been like if she was able to hear. It seems like a beautiful daydream. However, I can't help but notice that what's being said is not the correct enunciation of it. This can't be helped because that's how she heard the word her whole life. She's never heard them correctly before. But nevertheless, it's such a lovely daydream. That same night, Shoko dreamt that Shoya was going to disappear. In fear, she ran to the place where Shoya and her always meet out every Tuesday. This is a desperate attempt to see him one last time.
Wake up! Wake up!
Shoya has a dream, the same one that Shoko had. What would life be like if Shoko was able to hear? But then it shifts to everyone leaving. At the end of it, he ends up waking up, panicked because he wants to know if Shoko is okay. He escapes the hospital and runs to the place where he and Shoko always meet up at, and he finds her there. He begins to apologize about the things that he has done in the past, because he realized that he's never actually apologized for it. They both begin to talk and come to the conclusion that dying is not the answer, and that they need each other in order to live. They soon are found by their mothers, and Shoya's mom faints once she sees that her son is awake. She soon wakes up to find the doctor examining her son's butt. Good news, apparently the crack was there to begin with. However, he does have a dent in his butt. According to the author, the reason this is because when he fell into the lake, the fish in that lake started to nibble away at the butt, and that's why he's like that. Shoya finally makes it home, and after a while, the Nishimiya family comes over to celebrate his recovery. They have some heavy moments, but leave it to a child to lighten up the mood. The kids end up leaving to go buy snacks, and they came back to see that their mothers were drunk and talking about how their husbands abandoned them. After so long, we finally get to see the two mothers let loose and have fun. And good, they deserve it. The school festival is happening, and Shoya is finally going to be facing his friends after so long. With the help of Shoko, he is able to make it to the classroom and walk in. He sees that they are playing the movie that they were making. They made the film into a silent film so that Shoko can be a part of it too. To everyone, the movie was okay, but to Shoya, the movie was awesome. So awesome that he couldn't suppress his voice, causing everyone to turn and stare at him, so he runs away. Eventually, he faces everyone, but wait a minute. I'm just kidding. He's trying to look like the guy he looks up to, which is this film producer guy. Everybody seems different now. Sure, they're still bickering because that's how they are. They're the same people. They're there's not this sense of hate anymore. It's just a bunch of broken people who came together to work on a project and became friends because of it. So after all the thanks and sorries, they all go around the festival together. This is where the movie ends. Shoya is looking around and starts to see people's faces because he's finally able to forgive himself and move forward. And honestly, it hits a lot harder in the movie, but that's not where the manga ends, so let's continue. Things are different now. Shoya's class starts to talk to him, and he's able to talk to them back. Eventually, the group gets together to go to the amateur film contest to see how their movie gets ranked. And well, let's just say it was brutal. The dude said that the script was bad, the costumes were cheap and belonged in a porno, and the lead character had thick eyebrows. He pretty much ripped them to shreds. They were sulking and arguing about what they did wrong, but then the guy who was working on the music shows up. Turns out it was Kazuki. I mean, like, if you read the manga, you already knew, but surprise. He basically said that they don't need that guy's approval because they were just working on this movie on their spare time. You know, that they can do better. To which everyone's like, yeah, this wasn't my best. I wasn't fully serious about this, and if I was, would have won. Then they all go to a restaurant together, and Ueno makes a joke about Yuzuru eating off a kid's menu, and Shoko finds that hilarious. Now would you look at that? They're sitting together. It wasn't that long ago that Ueno was using Shoko as a punching bag. Now that's what I call growth.
Hey, look at us.
Look at us. Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
Now, it's time to talk about the future of the characters. Let's start off with Miyoko and Ueno. They submitted the fairy costume into a fashion competition and end up winning. The prize that they won was a scholarship to a college in Tokyo. At the end of the story, there's a 2-year time skip because everyone goes off to do their own thing, but they get reunited at the coming of age ceremony. So when we see Miyoko and Ueno again, they are planning to start their own fashion brand together. Remember when Shoko submitted a photo of Yuzuru's to a contest? Well, Yuzuru ended up winning that contest, and because of this, Yuzuru is able to go back to school after being a truant for so long. Instead of getting "Who are you and where have you been" from her classmates, she now gets "I like the photo you took and congratulations." However, she still needs Shoya's help to study in order to catch up to her peers. After the 2 years time skip, we see her again. This time she's a high schooler who still loves to take photos, just not of dead things, probably. Tomohiro is still striving to be a director, so he's going to a film school. He keeps failing at making good films, but he also keeps trying, so I hope for the best for him. They say the number one reason for success is persistence, and he has a lot of that, so he'll be fine. As for Miki and Satoshi, well, they're going off to college. Miki is going to chase him no matter where he goes, so since Satoshi is going to be a teacher, most likely she will also become a teacher. But we don't actually get any information on that. All we know is that Miki likes Satoshi, and turns out he likes her too. So I'm sure that they'll eventually start to date, but who knows? And frankly, who cares? We do get information on Keisuke, you know, the fat kid from the past. The dude somehow landed this beauty and even has a kid with her, which, good for him. He's a role model to us fatties. As for Kazuki, all we know is that he went to France to study music. We don't actually see him again. It also shows us that the two mothers have actually become somewhat of friends. Shoko's mom comes around to drink with Shoya's mom and even gets her hair cut by her. All the hate that Shoko's mom had for Shoya is gone. I mean, how could you hate the guy who risked his life to save your daughter? She even asked Shoya to help Shoko pack her things because guess what? She's going to Tokyo. She's going to Tokyo to work at a salon to get a hair license. If you read the first chapter in the manga or paid attention in the beginning of the movie, you can see Shoko is waiting to get her hair done by Shoya's mom. This is 7 months before Shoko transferred into Shoya's class. I talked about how Shoko's mom wanted her to have short hair in order to make her look like a boy, so people won't mess with her. But the hairdresser at the time ended up going with Shoko's choice of having a cute haircut rather than the boy haircut. To which Shoko's mom left mad and went back home to try to cut Shoko's hair by herself. To which Yuzuru ended up stopping that. Shoya's mom's actions that day must have stayed with Shoko throughout her life. Of course, Shoya doesn't like the idea of Shoko moving to Tokyo. He doesn't know why he's so worried. Basically, the boy is dense and doesn't understand his feelings for her. But eventually he realized that Shoko needs to do this. She's finally strong enough not to need the help of others in order to live. So he helps her pack up and sees her off. As for Shoya, he wants to help his mother and take over her shop. So he's going to become a hairdresser as well. Finally, we're at the end. Everyone is gathering together at the coming of age ceremony. After talking with each other for a bit, everyone goes their separate ways, leaving only Shoya and Shoko together. They walk to the door where their elementary classmates will be waiting behind, and eventually they reach it. They're in front of the door, both nervous to go in because it's their final step. Behind the door is the people who saw the bullying that happened so long ago. And how are they going to react when they see that the bully and the bully victim are walking in together? After looking at each other, then smiling, they go in hand to hand to face the past one last time. The end. With that, we reach the end of A Silent Voice. At first, it seems like it ended too soon because I wanted to see how the class reacted to them walking in together. But in the end, none of that really matters. Who cares what they think? The two of them already went through a lot together. They both accept each other's flaws. They're both pretty much in love with each other. So it doesn't really matter what any other person thinks. They have each other. Sure, they're still not going out, but they both like each other. So eventually they will. They both want to be hairdressers. They both like each other. And they both promise each other to help each other live. So yeah, marriage is not off the table. It's very possible for them. So who knows? Maybe they'll take over Shoya's mom's shop together. These two characters both had planned to end their lives at one point. But after one of them decided to reach out to the other, in order to communicate with them, their lives ended up changing forever. I love this story. Sometimes the things that destroy people the most is their inability to talk to one another. Why is it that we have voices and languages, yet we still struggle to communicate with each other? Sometimes it's best to know what other people are saying before you judge them. Maybe they're crazy or mean, or maybe they just don't know how to articulate themselves. We all live in this broken world together, and this broken world tends to produce broken people. But if we have forgiveness for these broken people, then at the very least we start the healing process for them, and the world may end up a little less broken because of it. After rereading the series, I began to ask myself, when do we truly earn forgiveness? And honestly, I still don't know the answer. I mean, look at me. I'm just some recluse otaku talking to my phone, hoping someone would listen. I don't have any answers for this world. But I know that you need to earn the forgiveness of more than just one person. You need the person you wronged to forgive you. You need the people who love that person to be able to forgive you. And then you need to be able to forgive yourself. What I'm about to say might not apply to anyone, but just in case it does, it's okay to forgive yourself. Stop tormenting your soul, my guy, and try to make the most out of what you got. The last thing I want to talk about is, I don't know if it's just me or do the volume covers look like they're trying to say something as well. Because volume 1, you have them as kids looking away from each other. Then with each volume, they start to slightly turn towards one another, like if they're both getting used to one another. Until volume 6, where Shoko is fully turned towards Shoya, but Shoya is missing, with nothing but bubbles in his place. Then you have the final volume, where they're fully turned towards each other, because they're finally able to talk and understand each other. But I don't know, my brain's too smooth for this. If you made it fully through this video, thank you. I know that most people don't read manga, so they might not know the full story of A Silent Voice. So I wanted to make this video hopefully for people to be able to listen to, but please still check out the manga because even though I talked about it, the story is still a great read. With that being said, thank you again for giving me your time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day and goodbye.